start. Can I request Mr. Charles Cowling on the stage, please? Mr. Charles Cowling is the president of the International Actuarial Association Canada, and he's also the chief actuary of Mercer, UK. Can I ask Arun to please honor him? Charles, may I request you to please take a seat? Next, can I call Mr. Timothy Rozar, President, Society of Actuaries. Timothy is also a Senior Vice President and Chief of Staff to CEO of RGA. Thank you, Arun. Now, can I please request Mr. Frank Chang, President, Casualty Actuarial Society of US, to please be on stage. Frank is the VP of Life Sciences at Uber. Interestingly, he's also the first actuary in Google back in 2012. Can now invite Ms. Preeti Chandrasekhar, Vice President, Institute of Actuaries for India, who will also be the session chair, to please be on stage. And can I now invite Ms. Kalpana Shah, President, Institute and Faculty of Actuaries, UK, to please be on stage. Preeti, can you please honor Kalpana? Thank you, Preeti. Preeti, I'll request you to take the session forward.
Hello, can you hear me? So it's still morning. A very good morning to all of you. We had wonderful sessions and keynote addresses this morning. And over the past, yesterday and today, we've talked a lot about AI, machine learning, actuary of the future, etc. So that opens up a lot of new areas and opportunities for us. Yet there's also areas where we really need to see how we can gear ourselves up for that. So from an actuarial standpoint, predicting the future is not an easy job and it's quite daunting. And we don't have any crystal ball with us, but yet I think actuaries have done a much better job as compared to some other professions. Yet, we know that there would be jobs in the future which don't exist today, and we know that we don't know about them. We're talking about AI, we're talking about machine learning, we're talking about data scientists, and we are all, since yesterday I've heard a lot, in the sessions where people are talking about would data scientists actually take up our jobs. They are already, entering into fields which were the forte of actuaries. So against this backdrop, Charles, I'll ask you the first question. How do actuaries stay relevant? Given the fact that, how is it that we make sure that we are leaders in the fields where we are currently playing. That's one. And more importantly, also ensuring that the public has a better understanding of what actual skills bring.
Thanks, Preeti, and it's a great pleasure to be here. That's a really important question. We as actuaries need to ensure that we stay relevant. And we stay relevant by being alert to the key issues that affect society and responding to those issues. So whether those issues are around things like climate change, protection gaps, lifetime savings, risks around water security, food security, pandemics, AI, we need to be alert to all of these things and respond to them. And I like to think that we, as actuaries, are doing that, and we have a great track record for doing that, but we've got to continue to do that, and with AI we've got to do it even more going forward.
Thank you. Tim, my next question to you is, how do we stay nimble? You know, we're talking a lot about skills around AI, ML, etc. But any other skills which can in some sense future-proof us? Because, you know, we don't have a template around what are the skills of the future we're talking about. And we are good at predicting future, much better than other professions.
Yeah, certainly everything you said is exactly correct. I think when we think about the future, it's going to be less about making predictions and more about what we do with the predictions, certainly as technology continues to evolve on the prediction side. And probably it'll also be a little bit less about technical skills and more about the higher level skills, softer skills that we think about. There's a useful framework that we use at the SOA, and it's, I've seen it elsewhere as well. It's a taxonomy of skills that looks at kind of your foundational skills, which are called IQ, and then kind of your softer skills, AQ and EQ. In that middle area, the EQ skills, this is really kind of your socio-emotional skills, leadership, critical thinking, decision-making, and then kind of at the top, your meta skills around adaptability and change management. I think these are things that are universal, they're evergreen, they add value beyond just what the technical or foundational skills provide. And these higher order skills have really, from an SOA perspective, we've really tried to build those into the curriculum explicitly. We have a decision-making and communications module that all candidates end up taking. Again, those kind of skills become relevant into the future as well. We have project-based assessments. We have communications and presentation requirements. And I think as you look to the future, that ability to use those higher order skills is going to really be what brings value for the actuaries as you think about technology and artificial intelligence.
Thanks a lot, Tim. I think you've covered the entire skills taxonomy, if I may say so. Thanks a lot for that. So Frank, my next question to you is, what are the challenges and opportunities that you see emerging for actuaries, and how is your association addressing some of those right away?
Thank you. I want to say just a shout out to those actuaries that have been doing actuarial work for a long time. This is not new, so to speak. Right? We have AI, there's always going to be some disruption, and actuaries are always prepared to meet it because we deal with risk fundamentally. So what are the challenges? We've got a changing environment, right? We have a lot of climate-related losses to the insurance industry. We have a lot of emergence of new technologies that we have to get in front of. So how do we do that as an organization? I would say we start by education, right? We have to do two things. One, we have to get the new curriculum into both our professional education and our admissions criteria. So for example, predictive analytics is a big thing, so we need to have an exam on that. And as folks get more and more seasoned, they're going to need to keep their skills up to date. So we have to deliver this education at a higher speed. At the CIS, we have something called the Admissions Transformation Plan that other organizations can look up and borrow. It is a 3-year cycle where we review all of our subjects. We look at all the things that actuaries need to do in the future, and we match those things together to figure out what we need to do to add stuff to our admissions. I guess the other thing is, as we think of actuaries of the future, it's really important to do outreach. And I want to just give a shout out to Mayor, bringing the children who gave a very good performance. Those kind of outreach, that is thinking about the actuary of the future. We need to start early, and we need to teach about our profession so that folks are aware that there's a need for actuaries in the future.
Great. Thanks a lot, Frank. My next question is around ESG. We know that ESG, in some sense, has been at the core of the insurance DNA. It's only over the past decade or so we've seen more institutionalization, and structure around ESG. So, Kalpana, to you, my next question is: what is it that you're seeing in terms of ESG, and how are you incorporating it into your entire curriculum at IFoA and building awareness about it?
Right. Thank you, Preeti. It's a good question. And I guess the IFoA, like many actuarial professions, is really supported by its volunteers really strongly. They're the backbone of our organization. And our volunteers have different interests. You know, some will be interested in data science, and some will obviously be interested in many things, but some will be passionate about the field. And we have members who are passionate about climate change, and who are passionate about ESG. Whilst we're all interested in it, you need people to lead. And we've been lucky that we've had really strong volunteers who've been leading the way we do things, pushing us to go forward in terms of incorporating principles and themes into all our exams, into lifelong learning, and really pushing it into our DNA. I don't want to take the credit for things that are not really mine. We've had president previously who was really passionate about climate, and that has really pushed us faster. And that's what you need. You need people bringing different things to the table, different perspectives, so that where we are stronger is because people really meant it, and they were true to it. It wasn't a tick box exercise. So I think, and even on council, we have a lot of people who are very empowered from inside to do something about it, and that helps us and drives us forward. Thank you.
Thanks. I think that's great. Frank, to you, a very specific question around how do you incorporate, in some examples, if you can share, how do you incorporate the whole concept of ESG in underwriting and product design from an insurance company standpoint?
Absolutely. This is already happening. So, for example, there are discounts for green buildings, for property insurance. There's discounts for EVs. And some of these things are already paid for by underwriting because the drivers of EVs generally are safer. So you look at the data and you can find ways to do that. We talked yesterday, I can't remember which speaker, about pay as you drive. And what that does is it really aligns your economic incentive, right? The more miles you drive, the more risk you have, the more premium you pay. That actually encourages you to think about the cost of driving, so you might drive less, therefore helping with pollution. On the environmental front, I think I'll fly through social and governance real quick. So for the social, you look at a lot of companies and they have these wellness programs, and these wellness programs earn them discounts on premium for workman's comp and health insurance. These wellness programs also encourage their employees to stay healthy, which is great, especially if you work in an environment that has a lot of hours. And then finally, you go to governance. I think the best example of governance right now is how do we sell directors and officers insurance to other companies. If their corporate governance doesn't make sense, or there's no shareholder power whatsoever, that D&O insurance is going to go up because you have a higher risk of a shareholder lawsuit. Just some examples.
Oh yeah, I think great examples. Arun, next over to you on how do you use data modeling and machine learning, from an Indian context in ESG.
Sure, thank you, Preeti. ESG, as we know, is about the environmental disasters or the social disruptions or even the controversies that might happen. and the governance issues. I think it's all about a lot of information and data that as individuals, but also as businesses that we need to scan. If I look at how we can use data science and ML for ESG, that's a question. I look at the question as AI and ML, and I look at AI. AI can't be there without A as actuaries, right? We are there, we are there to start with. And in fact, I feel it's about the inverse. I'm the actuaries is acronymed as AI, is how I look at it. It's actually an expansion of what we do currently. It's not so different. We look at data, we do a modeling, and we do kind of a lot of iterations on the model and test. But if I look at data, now it's just not going to be insurance data, it's going to be a lot of different data. Data is going to be structured, data is going to be unstructured. It's just not the data, it's also the information. There could be, it's not numeric per se. So we will have to find a way, and there are a lot of algorithms. Even the textual part is there. We have NLPs to pick it up. So we can use a lot of ML algorithms to actually scan the data and find the relevant data which we need to look at. So that's the first place where I see, from an Indian context, at this point of time, we are developing the BRSR reporting for many of the industries. And this is very important, and as actuaries, we need to look at how we can do data scanning and storing that. Similarly, the ML algorithms can be used for modeling as well, and also doing a lot of repetitive calibrating of the model. With the climate risks on, it's also more relevant to look at the shocks. We do a lot of scenario testing, I would say, in our own parlance, but we have to look at the parameters in a different way and then see how the results would impact for such an eventuality. Not just that, we'll have to look at optimization. Optimization not just in terms of ESG, but also in terms of how we do the business, how we do the investments. So all of this are linked to the fundamental model that we build, but it has to be expanded in terms of the data segregation, aggregation, in terms of how we restructure our model and how we do the shock testing. That's how I look at it. I don't know whether I have answered your question.
So
it's more generic.
The essence of it is that you overlay actuarial intelligence over artificial intelligence, right? So that's how I would think how actuaries can play a role there.
Yeah, of course.
Right? Okay, so it's an AI of a different kind overlaying an AI of an artificial intelligence. Thanks for that. Kalpana, over to you. In terms of climate risks, we talked broadly on climate risks, and you talked about how people, IFoA, there were earlier presidents who were passionate about it and do a lot of things. So what are any specific areas as a result of all the studies that you've done where you can share with us on how actuaries can help?
Absolutely. I mean, once you move beyond climate change and feeling that it's an important topic, and even if you don't feel it's an important topic, there is a role for actuaries to play. I mean, it's turning the intangible into the tangible, and that's really our business. We're problem solvers, and this is a problem, right? So what do? We can incorporate it into our pricing, underwriting it that way, and then you look at modelling. We've got to build it into our models for the future, trying to forecast it and trying to quantify it. We've got investments risk. Investments a huge part of most people's balance sheet, and it's a huge variable. So I'm seeing that increasingly on the agenda, and these sort of techniques and stuff are fairly new for people. So it's sharing those things. There's also in policy making and being influential in how we do that. Communicating is a big part of it. And what I've also seen is actuaries who have been doing one role. Their passion for climate change is opening up doors to other areas of the business that they may not have thought of before or felt that they didn't have the skills to enter. So through the additional communication, the broader learning, it's really opening up avenues that they hadn't previously seen. So there's so much once you start breaking through, wow, what is this? And the more you understand, the more you can start sort of clearing away the cobwebs and trying to help and make a difference.
Yeah, I think we've always traditionally been very good at modeling, right? Modeling future scenarios, etc. So I think climate just throws in a lot of unknowns, more unknowns than what we've sort of been comfortable with till now. So yeah, and that's a nice challenge for us. Okay, I come to a topic of talking about protection gap. And, you know, since yesterday, this morning also we talked about protection gap, whether you're talking about health protection gap, insurance protection gap, income protection gap, longevity protection gap. So there's a whole lot of gaps that we're talking about. With climate, you're seeing, you know, more cyclones, flooding, you're seeing changes in the morbidity, mortality, longevity, everything is changing, right? So, Charles, my question to you really is, you know, how is it that we see actuaries playing a significant role with the regulators and industry bodies in sort of helping bridge this protection gap for the population as a whole, not specifically for employers or employees, etc., but a general population?
So that is one of the really important roles that the IAA seeks to achieve. So we engage regularly with the UN on protection gaps, with the International Association of Insurance Supervisors, with the International Organization of Pension Supervisors, with the OECD. We go to their meetings, they come to our meetings, and we are talking to them and making sure that actuaries are at the table when these really important issues are being debated. So that, for me, is one of the key roles of the IAA. And we are making and having a real influence with these global decision makers, and it's being at the table with them.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Charles. Arun, my next question to you is, India has a different kind of a challenge. We are over 90% of the working population is the unorganized sector. The NHA CEO talked about over 95%. But given this kind of a challenge, how is it that you see actuaries can play a role in influencing the policymakers, or more importantly, contributing towards certain policies which help manage this kind of a protection gap? Given we don't have a social security network in India, either for pension or for health. So how do you take it forward?
Thanks, Preeti. It's a pretty big question for a country like India, right? We have a large population, we're the number one. We've just overtaken China. In terms of demography, we are still young, but we're going to age, and that brings a lot of questions on security in retirement and health and so many other things. Government is definitely working in many directions. There are direct benefit transfers which have come in. The health insurance that we have seen about the NHA in the morning. The insurance for all by 2047 by the chairman IRD's vision is all there. But how do we reach there? I mean, it's the two things. One is about the size. The second one is about the reach and awareness. I look at the way we cannot have a product which is across all of us. One size fits all will not work for a country like India. We have different strata, different type of communities. So I thought as actuaries we can probably influence in 4 different ways. One is about the product innovation. We can leverage on the product innovation side. We can probably develop different products for different strata of the society, be it micro insurance, be it simplified products for rural or women. There are different types of ways we can help to reach the goal. That's one area. The second one is about we can explore a risk pooling and solidarity mechanisms. In a way, we can look at community-based insurance or cooperative models, right? So there are different set of people with a different need, and in each packet, And India is such a diverse country. We have so many states, so many different communities, so many different strata. We can explore risk pooling and kind of solidarity mechanisms, find out and play on that. The third one is that we can play a role on financial inclusion and literacy, how we can educate about insurance, pension planning, insurance planning, health insurance, retirement, risk management. So I think it's more about educating the masses. As actuaries, whether we're doing it, I think we should introspect and maybe we should play a significant role on that. The last one I feel is about facilitating partnerships, facilitating public and private partnership, because this is about a state issue in terms of the unorganized or the downtrodden. But unless the private partners with that, I think the success of it or the reach or the efficacy of it it's not that it's not achievable, but it would be much more better if we can have a facilitating mechanism from the actuarial side for a public-private partnership. These are my very high-level thoughts.
Thanks, Arun. I think that's a good segue, Kalpana, for my next question addressed to you. In terms of the kind of collaboration you see with other industry bodies and other professional bodies, because these are all, in some sense, interdisciplinary, right? So we cannot sort of just go on our own. So what is IFoA doing about that kind of a collaboration?
Thank you. Firstly, collaboration is key. I mean, the IFoA has a long history of its top vision piece is about promoting the profession and furthering the profession, which means actuaries generally. And it's got a history of helping countries set up the actuarial profession in the country, promote it. So it is in our core to work with other associations and help them and progress. So collaboration is key, and we do attempt to do that, and we have many partnerships around the world. On top of that, our council is very strong in our view that we are not a corporate company. We're a membership body serving our members and doing good for society. Those are our values. So that really focuses your mind about how you collaborate. And then we look at how do we promote the profession. And one of the things we look at is data science. It was new to me that it was something separate from what actuaries do. And many actuaries saw themselves as data scientists of sort. So one of the things, we have got active partnerships in that area. But also I imagine that will further, because as AI progresses, our roles, different professions, and what is our difference and how we evolve may well change. And we may become more similar to other professions and have more ties. And I think the future will make ourselves look at our own skill set slightly differently. So, I think there's a lot to do as well.
Thank you so much. Okay, so with all this disruption, we realized that AI, COVID, and many other things actually made us look at our existing models, made us develop new models, and with those new models that were developed came the uncertainty associated and some of the assumptions that we had to make, right? And assumptions is not something new to actuaries. But I think what was important there is how do we communicate the entire model to the larger world, or the consumers of whatever we are doing. So I think, Tim, my next question to you is, from professionalism standpoint, what are the additional challenges you see when we are talking about developing models in newer areas?
Yeah, I think anytime you're dealing with something new, a new practice area, the challenge is that there isn't an existing playbook to work from, right? You don't have a lot of historical experience. You may not have existing established standards of practice. There may not be a lot of experts in the field, to refer to or to provide oversight or peer review. So I think we always go back to what are the core principles of our profession. So go back on our core training, on our ethics, And then I guess similar to my comment I made, in the prior question, it's also, elevating those skills into kind of the softer skills, the business skills, focusing on critical thinking, on decision making, and embedding that in how we think about the impact on, new initiatives or new areas like artificial intelligence and data science as well.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Tim. Next question to you, Charles, really is, about ethical use of AI. We've talked about it since yesterday. And as professionals, actuaries are known to have the highest standards of professionalism and ethics. But then, obviously, the expectation is going to be even higher now, given, yesterday, Frank was talking about, one of the New York Times, I think, suing another organization because of AI. So obviously it throws open a lot of uncertainties associated, and somewhere when we're getting into newer areas, while it's exciting, I think the professional and ethical standards of proper use of AI get very critical. So your views on how you think we'll be able to do it?
So I think you're absolutely right. It's absolutely critical. I would say that we're in a strong and unique position. We are experts in data analytics and mathematical modeling. We know the problems of biases in data and ever more sophisticated models. And we have already professional codes of conduct. So we are well positioned to think about how we embed AI and the ethics of using AI within our codes of conduct. And at the IAA, we're really focused on how we can bring associations from around the world to share best practice on embedding ethical use of AI in codes of conduct, but also how we engage with regulators and those who are responsible for introducing the ethical use of AI more generally, that actuaries are ideally suited to help and advise on how we ensure that AI is used ethically.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Charles. I think that's very encouraging to know that we're sort of heading in the right direction, right, in that sense.
Could I add to that?
Yes.
Okay.
Of course.
So there was a book that was published a few years ago by Kathy O'Brien called Weapons of Math Destruction. It's quite a good book. It talks not just about AI, but ML and bias. And she has a consulting firm actually that helps with ethical development of ethics in ML, and how do you understand if your machine learning model is ethical. She's actually given quite a few talks at CS meetings. But I would say you could look that up to say, what is the framework by which you can determine if something is ethical or not, right? It is a bit of a judgment across a lot of folks. So how do we align on what is ethical use and what is not ethical use? And her methodology is quite strong. So I would say that's something we should look at as actuaries, where there's existing art in the field.
Thanks for that, Frank. Anybody else has any ideas, suggestions? Okay. Thanks. I think we've talked a lot about what is the actuary of the future going to be, but we can obviously not do that without the younger generation entering into the profession. And, the challenge for us always has been, how do you actually attract bright minds into the profession, and more importantly, sustain their interest on an ongoing basis, so that, they don't just move out finding something more attractive after a couple of papers. So my next question is sort of addressed to you, Kalpana, Tim, Frank, and Arun. In terms of what is it that you think the organization is doing to catch them young? That's the first point. And after catching them young, making sure that you're able to handle their ever-growing aspirations and expectations from any profession which is considered to be a very coveted and sought-after profession. Kalpana, we'll start from you.
Thank you. Catching them young is a challenge, isn't it? So what would you be interested in when you're young? You want something exciting, not boring, and you want something that lives up to your values. I think people are, data shows people are much more idealistic when they're younger. And so I'm glad to say that a lot of what we've done, what we do on climate change, on ESG, that sort of shows people that we care about the environment, we care about people. Our council, you look at it and it's diverse, and we want to be an inclusive body. People want to join an organization where they feel included, no matter where you come from, what sector you are. And I think another piece is to show actuaries. We're not stereotypical, we're not one thing. So showcasing different types of actuaries, changing the reputation. There's a stereotype. Someone asked what films got actuaries in it, I think, on the first day. It wasn't necessarily an exciting picture. And, I sometimes joke we should have a film or a mini-series starring actuaries and show how exciting we can be. That's, we can take auditions later. But, there are many ways. But I think a big thing is changing our reputation. We like maths. We love maths, fine. But we love lots of things, and showcasing you can be who you are, and you can still be an actuary. We're ethical, we do the right thing, we work hard, all of those things. That's what the young want to see, and incorporating that into the exam. What do they want to see? And we're doing those sort of things too.
Thanks. So we have a tagline of you talk about a lot of other things and say we also are an actuary, right? And I think to your point of filmmaking, we'll have a lot of aspirants, so you don't be surprised if you get people interested in writing to you about the whole thing, right? So, okay, what about you, Tim?
Yeah, so I guess a lot of our marketing and outreach activities are kind of similar, trying to focus on messages about, that actuaries, can be fun, and also that the work that we do is, quite impactful. It's meaningful, similar to the comments about climate change, things that people can get very passionate about and that are important to them, and demonstrating that we, as actuaries, are working on the big, challenging problems of the future. One thing the SOA has done a little more tactically, I guess, is in the last 2 years, just over 2 years ago, late 2021, we launched a new membership category for the first time in a long time called the Affiliate Membership Program. And it allows, it's really targeted at high school students, even their parents, counselors, anyone that's kind of interested in the actuarial profession or learning more about it. But it's open for anyone, anyone in this room, anyone that's thinking about a career change, who's just interested in learning about actuarial science. A lot of times you launch these programs and it's hard to determine what the success is, or maybe it doesn't work out quite like you had hoped. But this is one where, in just over 2 years, we have over 14,000 affiliate members now in a pretty short time, which is the kind of just uptake that you would never expect, and it's been very heartwarming. And we're starting to see that, I guess in marketing parlance, start to turn into conversions in terms of an uptick in first-time exam takers, and we can track that as well. And anyone that that joins the affiliate program, they're getting access to digital learning, e-learning content, videos and information about the actuarial profession, access to mentors, just this library of content where they can really learn and engage on what does it mean to be an actuary, learn from actuaries on what they work on, how do I engage in the exam system, and all that kind of information. So it's a program that we're very, very proud of, and has really been quite a success.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks.
I'll piggyback off that. We have something called the CAS Student Central, which is free. And actually we have joint efforts with the SOA and other organizations as well to promote the actuarial profession to students. And I think that's where it really starts. I also think that we have an issue with diversity, equity, and inclusion. There's a lot of underrepresented folks in our profession, right? If you look at the folks that are actuaries, we could use more representation from, at least in the United States, more minorities. So I think that's something we should think about when we're reaching out to students. The other thing is, I do like what Kalpana said about showing them that the work we do matters. It helps understand catastrophes, helps us to understand risk, helps us to make better choices as a people. And so I think selling that is important, but also saying, look, we're at the cutting edge. Actuaries have to figure out how to quantify risk. And in order to do that, you have to understand risk. Yesterday I showed risks with ChatGPT and chatbots. I'll also say I worked on self-driving car at Google, and we had a debate over whether spherical wheels were safer than regular wheels. So these are wheels that are spheres versus the tires that you're used to, which are, round but flat. And there's actual work that goes into that. We had a whole debate about how many ball bearings you need in order for a spherical wheel to stop if it goes in any direction. So you can imagine a spherical wheel can go anywhere it wants. Anyway, I'll stop about that. But it is a really interesting debate, and it's really cool to have an actuary work on something like that. So you want to highlight some of these cool things that actuaries get to do in order to open up the brains of the young and aspiring actuaries to say, I could do that too someday and work on cool stuff.
Thank you. Arun?
Thank you. It's a double challenge for us in India. We need to also grow. There is a demand-supply gap. Attracting bright minds. We, at this point of time, do not have a collegiate kind of a model in India for the actuaries. It's more a self-study. It's a professional course, like a chartered accountancy. So if I look at the whole life cycle, there are two handoffs that I feel. The handoff is when we get in the students, like what you said, catch them young. We need to ensure that we are there at that point of time when they are making the decision to move into a particular field. And we are doing that in multiple ways. One is reaching out to, it's a large country. We have around 30 states, and within that there's so many different languages, and each state has different school boards. They take their decisions on their own. There's a central board, there are international boards. We are reaching out to all these boards to create more awareness about the profession and also see whether we can get the subjects included in the standards, 9th, 10th, 11th grades. Apart from that, we're also doing a Olympiad, as all of you would know, the Olympiad in Actuarial Science for Indian students, launched by the earlier president during his tenure. It's going very well. But there's another handoff that I feel is more important. It's about when the career happens. Right? The student comes over, then there's a student life cycle where we'll have to look at the exams, the curriculum, the entire process, how we manage it. But just what happens after they qualify, that's more important. That's what they look at. When somebody enters, they take the decision by looking at what happens after I qualify. That's more important, and at this point of time, we are mostly niche in insurance, and we are trying out to influence the policy makers so that we can get into other fields like banking, health. There's so many fields with ESG coming in, climate risk. It's a multiple problem for us because we also have a bandwidth issue in terms of the number of actuaries that we have at this point of time. But we are picking up. We are having 50% of our, the entire membership, 50% have qualified in the last 4 years. Quite young, energetic, dynamic, and we look forward to their active support in creating more awareness, in creating more wider job opportunities, and influence the whole mass. And in a way, helping the whole industry and the country as a whole. That's
Thanks.
quickly from my side.
And I think an old profession which is turning younger has a different set of challenges for us here in India, right? So, yes, and that again goes back to ways in which we can continue engaging them as professionals also, you know, whether they have started their qualification, they are in the mid-level, or they've completed their qualification. I think that interest has to be sustained. Thank you very much to all the panelists for all the serious kind of questions. I will spend a few minutes with some rapid fire on some fun questions. So the first question to you, Charles, is what's one thing about you that surprises people?
Maybe wouldn't surprise those who know I'm passionate about ethics and professionalism, but I'm actually an ordained minister in the Church of England, and much as I love being an actuary, I will very soon be giving up my life as a full-time actuary to become a full-time Anglican priest.
Oh, okay. That really is surprising. Tim, how do you manage stress?
How do I manage stress? You know, my oldest son's about 21. He turns 22 this year. And I think it occurred to me when I was still taking exams. He was, 1 year old, crawling around on the floor, that when I would come home after a particularly stressful day, he didn't care at all, right? It was just, daddy's home. And I think that has always remained in my head, that what's stressful to me in the moment isn't necessarily going to be important to anyone else, and just try to keep that in perspective.
That's great. Frank, if you were permitted to change one moment in history or in your life, what would that be?
I would start my actuarial journey a lot earlier. I took my first exam at 30, so I'm a late bloomer.
Great. Kalpana, having the experience you have now, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
So if I was giving advice to my 20-year-old self, it would be difficult because there were a lot of people giving advice to my 20-year-old self. And, I was getting advice from school, people around me, but also I was brought up in quite a traditional Indian household. And as a girl, I was getting very different advice. And I wasn't taking much of it. So what I would advise my 20-year-old self, who thought she was doing everything wrong, is it's okay to find your own path and be an outlier.
That's great. Arun, what was your worst subject in school?
Subject?
In school.
School? Only subject? One subject I should tell?
Yeah, if you have many, just name the top one. The worst
Okay.
subject in school.
I hope none of you will meet my family and tell the secrets, right? My son and daughter is not here. If you ask them,
We'll try not to tell them.
Oh, I hope so. I'll take subjects if you
of
allow
course,
me.
Of course. Yeah.
I'll limit myself to single digit. I hope it's 4. I have actually 5, but I'll limit myself.
Okay.
School, history.
Okay.
I'm very poor. Don't ask my marks.
Okay,
please,
no, I'll not. I'll just restrict myself
Yeah.
to the name of the subject.
Yeah. Then after high school, chemistry.
Okay.
Yeah. The equations never kind of tallied.
You could never balance them.
Not. Later, I did my management accounting. The economics was quite completely, I'm not able to connect it. I'm still wondering how I can manage it. I moved to life insurance and the underwriting part, life insurance underwriting.
Okay.
Is
Very honest answer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Charles, what was the first career you dreamt of as a kid?
Okay, so when I was a kid, I wanted to fly. So I wanted to be a pilot or an astronaut.
Oh, that's nice. Tim, my question to you is, if you could instantly become an expert in something, what would that be?
So I would instantly, that means you don't have to study, so that's, a nice thing to start with. I think I'd want to become an expert in behavioral psychology.
Oh.
For 2 reasons. Number one is that I would be able to understand myself a lot better and like why I do the things that I do and don't do the things I shouldn't do. But I also think it's super valuable for actuaries because it's sort of like, the missing ingredient of our models is often human behavior. So like we can see what, but we can't always see why. And I think as you're trying to predict the future, understanding why is super important.
And I think that's where the interdisciplinary aspect also comes in, right? A lot of human behavior we need to look at. What is your hidden talent that people are not aware of, Frank?
So like many of you, I am fluent in 2 languages. I can speak two more, and there's two more that I'm working on.
Oh, that's great. Multilinguistic. Kalpana, one movie you would like to watch over and over again.
Okay.
It could
I'm
be
gonna
Bollywood,
cheat.
Hollywood,
I'm going
anything.
to cheat like Arun, right? Movies for me are mixed with the feeling of the environment at the time and music. So I saw Abhiman in Bangalore when I was 5. Music fantastic, could see that. Hum Kisi Se Kam Nahi in Nairobi in an outdoor theatre. And then my childhood full of Sound of Music and Wizard of Oz. So music, music, music. I could watch them.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Arun, if you were to travel back in time, what period would you like to go to?
I'd like to be in the current period.
Oh, you like to be?
I'm happy.
Oh, that's great.
I don't know about the past, at least how it was. I can see the data, but have not lived over
Oh,
there.
but that's a proper actuarial analysis of the entire thing. Thank you so much, everyone. I can now, okay, your time is up. Do I have no time at all? One question at least? Okay, thank you. Yeah, any one question? Rest of them, I think we can catch them during lunch.
Yeah, I have one question that, see, we actuaries are working on various aspects of projections and all. So question is to Mr. Tim, whether the business valuations like 409A valuation in USA, whether actuaries are working on that, because similar kind of valuations can be done here in India also. So how the actuaries are working on different subjects, like you can say the business valuation 409A, other thing is the ESOP valuations under ASC 718.
Was that for me?
It was for Mr. Tim, for in the SOA.
He said for you.
Yeah, so the question is regarding the business valuations which are there under 409A. You can say the projection of the company valuation to get the equity share price, and similarly the valuation of the share-based payment under the accounting standard codifications 718.
Newer areas of valuation he's talking about. One is, I think, any kind of long-term incentive plans, the design and the valuation, right? That's the first one. And what is the second one you talked about?
The second one is regarding the business valuation, the company valuations basically.
Company valuation. So is that an area where you're seeing actuaries getting into? That's your question,
Yeah,
right?
so this is, you can say business valuation is something similar to the embedded value. See, embedded value we are doing in the insurance space. Similarly, there can be valuation of the company itself. For example, let's say the Uber is worth XYZ billion. So whether this kind of valuation is done by the actuaries, do you see that actuaries can do this kind of valuation? So this can be one further area of the actuarial work.
Okay, my answer would be yes. Sorry, Tim.
Yeah,
I'll jump in.
I mean, I think absolutely. I think that there's certainly opportunities for actuarial skills to be expanded beyond, and I think we're already seeing actuaries that are providing a lot of value into areas like that.
Yeah,
I'll
I hear
just add
actuaries
to
on
that.
conference calls all the time, earnings conference calls, they're asking questions, so.
And I'll
It's
just
already
add to
happening.
that, our actuaries are already doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah? So,
No scope for one more? Okay. Now I'm getting waves of saying stop. Okay, thanks. Thanks a lot to all the panelists once again. I hope the audience enjoyed the question answer sessions. Looking forward to working with all of you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Preeti. Can I please request Ms. Yogita to be on the stage and give a small token of thanks to our panelists and chair? Can we have a quick group photo, please?
All right.